Mr. Wiedemer here from Mr. Wiedemer's History. Today we're going to talk about Unit 3.3, the Workers Plight. Here we go. So objective today, you guys to be able to describe working conditions and explain the rise of labor unions in the late 19th century. There's some captains of industry there for it to be talked about last time. Carnegie, Rockefeller, Morgan, all those good fellas. Alright, so now we've talked about the corporations and the businesses, and we've talked about the guys in charge. Now, what about everyone else? What about the rest of us, the rest of the people? Right? Well, things weren't so good for everybody else. So many workers were forced to make transition from being skilled, owning a shoe-making cobbler shop, to working in a shoe factory, doing the same repetitive stuff over and over and over again. Right? Because everybody's all about working in the factory now. So machines are going to take place of humans. Workers did the same thing over and over and over again. But factories were more efficient and could make more money for the captains of industry, for the owner. Right? So more jobs, more efficient, more money. So fewer people could do the same amount of work here with the machines in the factories. At low wages and long hours put burdens on industrial workers. They work 10 to 14 hours a day, 6 days a week. That's a lot of work for little to no pay. Alright, wages rose due to inflation, but they still weren't enough. Alright, most workers here, this is the big kicker. Okay, most workers earn $400 to $500 a year, but it costs $600 to live. So you didn't even make enough money to survive, to live. So what are you going to do? You can't make enough money to support your family. Well, you guessed it, child labor. Your children are going to be working now, so you can make ends meet for your family. And so some workers even had to live in this company town. Alright, these company villages, and they deducted money for rent and everything else, and they paid people not in money, not in dollars, but in scrip, because this company money that can only be spent at the company. So you lived in this town created by the company, you worked there, you lived there, you shopped there, everything you needed was in this one town owned by the company. Right, that happened quite often. As you see, wages not very good as where they should be. And not only were wages bad and the working conditions were long, but the conditions were awful. Right? Very unhealthy. Miners got black lung by breathing coal all day. Right? Factory workers breathe sawdust, stone dust, all kinds of dust and fumes, and choke a man to death. I mean, it was horrible. But, hey, the owners didn't care as long as they made the money. Right? If one of the workers died off, we'll just hire one of the other hundreds of people who need a job. It wasn't a big deal to them. Right? Like I said earlier, you made $400 or $500 a year. You needed $600 to survive. Well, you have to put your children to work. So child labor became very prevalent. So many children young as 6 years old, instead of going to school, you worked in a factory all day long. Right? So throughout the 1800s, many people were like, we can't have this. Children working now? What? That's crazy. That's ludicrous. But what are you going to do? Laws were loosely, factory owners got around it, weaseled the way around it, and children had to work. If you just paid industrial workers more money, then children wouldn't have to work. But, we can't have that. Right? So it wasn't good. So what are we going to do? We need to unionize. We need to get together. Right? We're stronger together, united, than just one person. Say if one person goes to the boss, hey boss, I need some, better working conditions and maybe more pay. What I'm doing is not cutting it. What's the boss going to do? Here's the door. See you later. You're fired. But But if you get a whole bunch of group of people, everybody in your whole company get together in one union, right? Get together in unison and demand changes, the boss is more likely going to say, whoa, okay, I can't do this without my workers, all of them, so yeah, okay, we'll give you more pay, better work conditions. So unions help the workers out. Workers unionized, got together for better conditions, for better pay, better hours, for benefits, right? And then this thing called the business cycle, where the ebbs and flows of business, business can be booming in the summer, and in the winter it kind of goes down, so they have to lay off a whole bunch of people. They still do that today. And so when we have these panics, these depressions, these recessions in 1873, 1882, 1893, people lost their jobs. It wasn't good. And workers had no way to protect their jobs. We're not making enough money, you're going to lay off half your workforce. So workers had to do something. They can't keep living like this, can't keep working like this. Things need to change. So what are we going to do? Form labor unions. As you see here, the union membership spikes when the economy is at a downturn. The lowest point in the economy, the highest point of union membership. When things are bad, people need to get together. Alright, quick review of part 1 here. Work conditions were awful. Alright, long hours, low wages, dangerous conditions, no benefits. Some companies made workers live in company towns and got paid with company money. Child labor became a huge issue when children had to work. Workers were affected by the ebbs and flows of business cycle. And so what are you going to do? There's only one thing to do. The workers must get together and unionize. And it's easier said than done. Because America is vast. America had a diverse work group. Many immigrants speaking different languages, different ways of life. It was really hard to get everybody together in one union. So we're going to run into some problems right off the bat. And so different labor unions also have different goals. Like, I want better working conditions. And, this union over here, I want better wages. And so it was really tough going early on. And plus employees liked unions, and employers hated unions, because it cut down their profit, and it's not good for an employer. They don't like unions. Kind of like Walmart today. It says no to unions because they'll cut down their profit, and it'll make prices go up if they have to pay their workers more. Kind of like the whole $15 an hour McDonald's workers this last week. They're in the summer. They went on strike to get better working conditions. This still goes on today. Same stuff. And if you were a bad worker, you would end on this thing called a blacklist. Basically, you're a troublemaker, and your chance of getting a job is slim to none. Alright, so you want to follow the company line, toe the company line. You want it to be a good worker, because if you spoke out against conditions, whatnot, you're going to be on the blacklist. You're not going to find a job anywhere. Because no one wants to hire a troublemaker. And so employers will also lock out. Basically, you go to work, and the doors are locked. They're going to lock you out. Right? You're not going to work. We're going to hire someone who will work. These scabs, temporary workers. Alright, think of a scab like in your skin. You get a cut, it scabs over. It's temporary skin until your wound heals. Same thing here. Temporary workers until the original workers decide, okay, it's not that bad. We'll come back to work. And so they're going to lock people out. Lockout. And then comes what unions all about, collective bargaining. Alright, basically, one person represents the entire union, and that one person's going to go talk to the owner. And they're going to come to some agreement. But workers are like, hey, you're violating my rights. I have a right, I have a say in this too. Not just one person who's going to go in there and, maybe bend through some money under the table or something. And so collective bargaining was looked at as a bad as union, but it had to be done. You can't just have, 200 workers going up to the boss and demand anything. It's not going to work. And so collective bargaining was issued, and that started. And then the police, they always sided with the employees, right? So it's not good either for the company. And now we're going to go on strike. We need better wages. We need better conditions. We're going on strike. So the railroad strike of 1877, membership fluctuated with the business conditions. When business conditions were bad, more people in the unions. Alright, Depression of 1873 hit, 5,000 businesses closed, done for. Couldn't make it anymore. People out of jobs. 3 million people unemployed. Alright, hobos and scamps all around just trying to find work, wandering the countryside, hopping on trains. You know, nowhere to work. You know, what are we going to do? We go on strike. Alright, so the hard times in the 70s reached climax. Railroad strike 1877. Alright, railroad companies were hit hard, so they had to cut workers, cut wages, cut costs. Alright, so the once free ride, you worked on the railroad, you get a free ride on that railroad. No more. You have to pay for that now. And the railroad workers became bitter and angry. How dare you make us work more for less pay and less benefits? And that ain't going to happen. So they go on strike. Right, so the workers threatened to walk off. Nothing was done. Strikers took over a whole town. Alright, in West Virginia. Alright, federal troops had to come in and regain control. And then not only in West Virginia, but in Pittsburgh, and Buffalo, and San Francisco, and Toledo. Workers all over the country are striking. Alright, they're not going to allow the abuses of the railroad companies. They're not going to allow that to happen anymore. Alright, we demand better wages. We demand better conditions. We want it, and we want it now. So the strikes height more than half the freight stopped running. And that can't happen because, hey, the mail runs on the freight. If half the freight stops working, mail ain't getting that. That's federal government business now. Okay, the federal government's going to get involved. The president is going to get involved. Now, he's going to send federal troops. He's going to put this down. And when it's all said and done, 100 people dead, 1,000 people jailed, and 100,000 workers altogether went on strike. A massive chaos. You know, when government got involved, the president got involved, something has to be done. So what's the president do? Hey, we're going to build National Guard armories. We're going to station them around the country. And if a strike comes up, we're going to have the National Guard there to put it down. And so we're going to end the strikes, bust them up. And look at these strikes and labor unrest in 1870, 1890, 1900. You see here the industrial base of America, the Northeast. A lot of strikes going on there. We'll talk about next time the Haymarket Square riot, Pullman strike. It's just strikes and riots all over. Workers demand better wages, demand more. They need to make a living, and it's not working, so they're going to demand better conditions. So, to review this section, working conditions were downright awful, downright deplorable. Long hours, low wages, dangerous conditions, no benefits. Some companies even made workers live in company towns that paid in company money. And so child labor became a huge issue because children had to work. Workers were affected by the ebbs and flows of business. And so there's the sources, and there we go. There was unit section 4. And next time we're going to talk about more about labor unions. So, until next time, it's Mr. Weimer here. Study history.